empires under the World Economic Forum. One should be able to search that out very quickly and find the three historian panel, the platform there that was spoken about. And as we mentioned again, the focus was mostly leaning toward the East, and specifically speaking of Eurasia, speaking specifically to China and Russia and their emergence just over the few short span of years coming up until this point. And again, we have to give credit where credit is due, again, to historian Snyder just for bringing out a lot more of that right and exact history. A lot of the things which many ones have said, especially among Rastafari and other ones as well, that much of the history has been coveted, much of the history has been ill-taught, and here we have one who has reached much of the heights of academia and amongst his peers who, of course, have reached certain levels of that particular strata, also seconding that and being, of course, in the sharing of those ideas and much of that truth from a historical standpoint. And again, I have to, as I mentioned, give credit where credit is due to historian Snyder, just as he mentioned, the shift, of course, from empire with no nation state as far as Europe and certain other parts of the world, especially within the Mediterranean, that came about in such a way. And again, as we mentioned scripturally, we are showed that to stand out to us in a very specific manner, but also from a historical standpoint as well. We think on, of course, many of the Hebrews, and which ones, of course, were coined Jews, and also the Moors, who, of course, came across the Mediterranean from certain parts and, of course, established certain empires at that particular time. And even so, the ones that stick out to us the most were during the times of the Crusades and also during the time of Western and Eastern Rome, another topic which we had spoken about many times. And of course, again, we have to say that historian Snyder was right and exact. There was no period Europe had a nation-state type of development or even time period where it was operating and functioning. It went specifically from empire, even from the time of the Moors and the Hebrews that, of course, were there, and even so, as many historians also said, the Ethiopians as well. And they went straight into certain times of exploitation, so on and so forth, slavery, subjugation, colonialism. This is just a historical fact, and probably the best point of reference to also second that notion is to look within the times of 13th, 14th, and 15th centuries, especially with the year 1492 AD within that specific realm. That'll definitely be a good start-off point for many ones to, again, research through history and at least, concur with what historian Snyder had brought about. So just with Eurasia or China and Russia are propagating to a certain extent and, of course, disseminating throughout their peoples, they are at least on that front showing and proving and exploiting the fact that much of these geopolitical shifts are indeed in full steam, I would say, at this point. Though many ones can't feel it from a certain sense, they can't see it from a certain sense, they are definitely still coming about at such a pace that is turning the world into a completely different place, but more so a place which is of old, and that really just stuck out to us on a myriad of points, on so many facets and caveats that we really had to, again, as I mentioned, take notes on that as well. And again, one should check that out for themselves, along with many of the other panels that are taking place as we speak, as well as those that have gone on since the 22nd to the 23rd, just from this Shabbat, this 7th this week. And again, our brothers and sisters, we mentioned this so that ones can, catch themselves up on many of the conversations that have been had. Of course, even so, the European Union, Brexit was spoken about in this instance as well. And I think we forgot to mention that United Kingdom Prime Minister Theresa May is also present there at the World Economic Forum. As we mentioned, many heads of state are definitely present at this particular gathering. Many intellectuals, many political figures, many businessmen and women, entrepreneurs are taking place in many of these, I guess you could say, these gatherings, these summits, and much information is coming out of what is being presented and has been presented that as the World Economic Forum has been able to showcase, up until this point. And we definitely have taken that opportunity to make sure that we are up to date, we are abrupt, awake and aware to what is going on out here in this world which we are living in, as internationally it's becoming more interconnected, and ones are coming to the truth of much of not only historical facts but social, economic, and geopolitical, I guess you could say, facets as well. So still in this sense, our brothers and sisters, that we have entered here into the grace period, just speaking on the World Economic Forum and many of the conversations being had from such afar, we definitely have to take into consideration for our fellowship specifically much of what we can, of course, continue to work and progress toward, especially within our learning and growing within Scripture. As far as just hearing a lot of what has been going on with many of the aristocratic class of peoples from various parts of the world, and thinking on where we are in this technological age, in this information age, we definitely see many opportunities, but probably the most pertinent that stand out to us the most, of course, as we have mentioned before, is cryptocurrencies, and also much of the minds that are being changed, especially here in the West, on the herb, so the healing of the nation. And we hope to get into much more reasonings amongst our fellowship, especially amongst the brothers and the sisters, as of course, we are seeking to present certain things also from that standpoint. We definitely are almost to the finalization of presenting the newsletter for one, so that we can also incorporate a lot of what we present here on Discipleship Radio in print form, and be able to disseminate that not only throughout the fellowship, but those, of course, who wish to partake as well. So if we will hear this in the fall, we are looking forward to putting that, out for ones to partake in as well. So again, just as we mentioned, the cryptocurrencies, speaking with a few of the brothers, of course, who have been able, to gather a bit of education and also, partake in much of the festivities, quote unquote, that have been going on there in the cryptocurrency market. We definitely sought to present these two articles as well, just to, kind of put at ease certain ones who may have not been able to acquire an education in the financial markets, as we are hoping to also present that as well, especially there on our channel. As we spoke, of course, on the herb, we will hopefully do a few more bids just to present, our own prima facie case on that sense, especially to gather the strength of our fellowship, of our co-laborers, to formulate certain contingencies, certain plans, certain agendas, for we, especially in this sense. And though we have had these conversations, in a shorter sense, with our brothers, especially the Rebbe, Brother Isaac, of course, even before we came here to the podcast, we were speaking on certain things, and many other ones as well, Brother Baruchu, Brother Abesalom, many other ones as well, not seeking to leave one's house, just calling certain ones off the top of our head. We are definitely looking a lot more intently and fervently into such things as these to work out at least a portion of our salvation. As we know, faith without works is dead. So we indeed see the tides turning within the greater economy of the world on an international sense, and also within the social, economic, and geopolitical sense, that we, of course, would not be showing ourselves as good stewards of Jah if we were frozen in a psychological state that would hinder us from moving onward and upwards. So just to keep that in mind, our brothers and sisters will be presenting, of course, some of our facts and some of our ideas, some more so in the public matter in the form of the vids there on our channel there at YouTube, and of course on our Groundation site as well. But many other ones will be more so private, more specifically to the fellowship of the group, especially within the newsletter. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to bringing forward much, much more so that ones and ones can definitely partake within that as well. But here, as we mentioned, within the cryptocurrency, for ones and ones who may be trading at this point or investing at a certain time and time stint, we are hoping to present a few vids also to help ones gain a little more education on that, as we are learning ourselves, a great deal of time within these financial markets, but definitely have gotten the proverbial ball rolling, as so to speak, quote unquote, just to begin the process of making our mistakes in the beginning, so that we, of course, can come out on the other side more strengthened within our stake. But here, this particular, these two particular articles that we, of course, would love to share with the speaking on 2018 and the cryptocurrencies. This one coming from BitSamp, and it mentions here on the headline the G7 central bank to start buying Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies from 2018 to strengthen foreign service. And this article actually comes from the end of last year, December 18, 2017. So more so a educated guess, a prediction, so to speak, on much of what is to come of the cryptocurrencies, as it has been a very hot-button issue within the public square, but also, as you mentioned, within the World Economic Forum as well. It has been a very hot-button topic. That's why we, of course, encourage ones to check out what is being said there. Also, look out for the G7 meeting, of course, which is coming up, should be soon. I have to, again, check the references on that. We know that the G20 summit, of course, will be in South America. I think that's Argentina around the end of this year, sometime around October, November, December, sometime around that time. So we'll be looking out for that as well, just to, again, tune in on the talks and see exactly what may be coming out as far as monetary policy. But here in this particular article, it reads as such: at present, the G7 has basically focused its work on the regulation of encrypted digital currencies and has not considered the potential of digging for digital assets. So basically, you cannot find Bitcoin, Ethernet, or Zcash, the cryptocurrencies, on the central bank's investment vehicles and currency. However, the situation will be different in 2018, as the G7 central banks will start buying encrypted digital currencies to strengthen their foreign exchange reserves. Now that I do not understand that the world is changing fast, not that I understand that the world is changing fast. And again, this article comes from BitSamp, and the writers and the proprietors of this particular site. The background here reads as such: one of the core functions of the central bank is managing the country's official gold reserves. That's also a very important asset which one should definitely look into at this point. Gold and silver, as the brother Rasiadinos, the Rebbe, has mentioned very in many talks and many vids, and brought forward much of the importance of silver within an economy. And even so, historically speaking, Ethiopia, of course, having its currency, the Ethiopian birr. The birr was, of course, backed by silver. Silver having many different uses aside from just being a store of value. Also, ones and ones will know they have silverware. They have other technological instruments that need silver to actually operate. Many of the technological items that we have, our laptops, our phones, our whatever else have you around your house, it definitely has a component of silver within it. And if ones and ones will do the research on that, you'll find interesting things there as well. But continuing on, Here it mentions one of the core functions of the central bank is managing the country's official gold reserves and foreign exchange reserves. Gold and foreign exchange reserves are necessary conditions to ensure that a country can repay foreign exchange indebtedness and maintain its confidence in existing monetary and exchange rate policy. In general, irrespective of external shocks, as long as gold and foreign exchange reserves are stable, it can bring about financial stability to the country and protect the people's economic well-being. Central banks usually hold gold to prevent economic events like Black Swan. Due to its high liquidity and diverse currency attributes, gold can be used as a buffer against financial risk. Foreign exchange, on the other hand, is characterized by its high liquidity and its advantages over the currency issued by its central bank. Foreign exchange is mainly brought through foreign exchange, mainly for the regulation of domestic currency liquidity management. Group of Seven, or the G7, national quality inspection through the political, financial, and trade agreements with each other. These countries have large reserves of gold, with the exception of Canada, where they have recently cleared all gold, and also hold the IMF, or the International Monetary Fund, special drawing rights, or the SDRs. We mentioned this also from the literary work of James Rickards of his Currency Wars. We'll hopefully get into that and maybe do another bit on that as well. And here are the special drawing rights of the SDRs and securities such as government bonds, corporate stocks, and foreign currency loans, etc. The SDRs, or the special drawing rights, are based on 5 major currencies, including the U.S. dollar, the euro, the yuan, the yen, and the Great British Pound. The renminbi breaks the monopoly of the G7 currency that makes up the SDR, for the special drawing rights. It's worth noting that the SDR is still important for the G7 currency. To put it simply, most of the Group of Seven, or the G7 countries, regard each other's currency as their foreign exchange reserves, while gold has become a common standard of value acceptable to all. Why 2018? The real turning point comes in the Bitcoin market, which exceeds the International Monetary Fund's total special drawing rights. Another turning point came from the Group of Seven, or the G7's realization that the legal tender of its own country is being prepared in relation to the cryptocurrency. Christine Lagarde, president of the International Monetary Fund, who is also present at the World Economic Forum, has warned central banks in that countries that digital cryptocurrencies can be devastated against the legal tender. Foreign exchange reserves are usually used to support their own legal currency. In fact, the legal currency has no value. It's paper and coins. By 2018, the G7 central banks will focus on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies whose market cap has become the largest international currency. Coupled with the global currency of digital currency, as well as the 7/24 nonstop transaction of special attributes, its advantages are self-evident. All this is an important factor in attracting the Bitcoin of the G7 central bank. Encrypting digital currency can play the role of quote-unquote digital gold. In 2018, cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin will be used for international trade, and due to the highest return on investment, the G7 may prefer the hold strategy. As a monetary policy tool, G7 central banks may seek to control the exchange rate by selling and buying foreign exchange currencies. But in 2018, they will begin to realize that such a control over the exchange rate approach will not be feasible for a globally encrypted digital currency market so that through the purchase of encrypted digital currencies, the G7 can achieve its goal of stabilizing economic performance edge. And just the last bit here, brothers and sisters, Bitcoin and other specific cryptographic digital currencies may be added to eligible securities and currency lists before the central bank plugs it into cryptocurrency. In addition, the G7 central banks may also use external fund managers to invest in digital currency. Of course, they certainly secretly operate and will not disclose this. Very well put there by Bits. Very interestingly enough, and if ones weren't able to follow that to the T, what they are pretty much presenting here is as far as the G7 talks have pretty much put into play, or at least are thinking to put into play, and we can confirm this just from the talks which we have heard there on the World Economic Forum, is that with gold being such a scarce resource and store of value, especially with all of the fiat currencies or the paper money which we have now in many of our countries, they may be looking to cryptocurrencies, specifically speaking on Bitcoin and maybe a few others that at least stand at the top of the heap of the cryptocurrencies to replace gold. Now, of course, we mentioned the special drawing rights, or the SDRs, which we definitely had caught wind of from one financial analyst and economic analyst, Jim Rickers, with Currency Wars. And even so, our brother Toby and I had spoken on this many times before, and I'm sure that he's seen much of the shifts taking place as well. But it definitely is shaping up just to be an interesting year, just to say the least, within the cryptocurrency market and financial or international financial monetary policy. To say the least, our brothers and sisters, one should definitely get educated at this point, as many things will, of course, come proverbially down the pipeline as more and more of these instances come out to us at this very moment. Also, within the other article which we had sought to present to the eye, and it speaks along the same lines as it is coined here. 2018, the year central bank begin to buy cryptocurrency. This comes from Coindesk.com, so one can also get a read on that as well. And this is presented also from the end of last year, December 17th, 2017, by a Eugene Etzebeth. So just to say, to keep one's on notice of that, as we mentioned, the World Economic Forum with hot-button issues, cryptocurrency definitely being one that was spoken on in high regard and, very high speculation among certain ones. Much interest has been drawn, just like it has in the public square for many other ones as well, and other traders and speculators and, other ones are working in certain aspects of business and entrepreneurship. The international heads of state and monetary policy administrators are also looking into this as well, at least from a standpoint to see if this will cause them any issues, and I use that term loosely, within their own monetary agendas. So that really just putting a fork in many of the plans of many ones who had sought to bring about certain things from such a time, and of course with the emergence of the digital cryptocurrencies and the interest sparked by many of the people, it just seems to put a definite change and a shift within the plans of many of the ones who are at such a helm of power. So even so, our brothers and sisters, as we have entered here into the grace period, we definitely will expound a bit more on much of this monetary policy which we are seeing out here in the world, hopefully to disseminate more information and, of course, put ones up on notice and get them up to date on much of the things going on out here in the world. We hope, of course, to expound a bit more on this, seek to form our own contingencies and our plans and our agendas, of course, to benefit us as Rastafari, Israel, Ethiopian Hebrews, and hopefully those to come in as well and share that within, of course, as we mentioned from our last Sabbath to a portion, the spoiling of spiritual Egypt. As, of course, one wants to know, we came through the Sabbath to a portion of the Exodus, and we definitely had thoughts of that within reading a lot of these articles and seeing a lot of the conversations that are being had within these aspects and realms of high academia. And we would also share this bit of scripture from the prophet Ezekiel as well, there in chapter 32, verse 12. By the swords of the mighty will I cause thy multitude to fall, the terrible of the nations, all of them, and they shall spoil the pomp of Egypt, and all the multitude thereof shall be destroyed. We give thanks, our brothers and sisters, of course, to our Father for life. We give thanks to the life giver for all of the lessons, of course, which we continue to derive from our scriptures, and much of what is to be had moving onward and upward.